How you all doing? Great to see these familiar faces all over the place, and the fact that you're smiling. I'd like to begin by acknowledging Gwen and the team. They have been very instrumental in making sure that your voices are heard within the Beehive. I have regular meetings with them, and they make sure that all of the issues that you present to them are presented to ministers. And I think that you have some really great advocates here, and I'd like to just acknowledge that, because they are working hard on your behalf. Before anyone asks, I am a member. I'm a member of 2 branches, and I have been a member of New Zealand Deerstalkers for 25 years. And I just want to touch on James Meagher. I was actually asked to leave my associations with firearms by DPMC, the Department of Prime Minister and Cabinet, because it was seen as a conflict of interest. And I said, hell no, I'm not doing that, because New Zealand Deerstalkers Association give me access to ranges all over the country, and they also give me an indemnity insurance. So why, as the Minister of Firearms, should I relinquish these rights that I have as a hunter and a firearms owner? And DPMC agreed with me. But for James, he hasn't become a member, and it's quite different for him, because I'm 25 years in and he would be a new member. So I hope that explains a little bit about why you won't see ministers actively joining clubs. It's because they're really not allowed to, and I had to fight to be able to maintain membership of mine. I'd also just like to acknowledge Mike McKee and the comments that he's made about community involvement and with instructors at uni. I was very saddened when that left us, but I'm really pleased to hear that there is a way forward, and watch that space. It's good news. I'm now going to read my speech. It's a pleasure to be back joining you all for another annual conference. I must say, while this year's conference is a wee bit further from home for me and a little bit colder, it is an absolute pleasure to be in this deep south, the province that holds 2 of New Zealand's unique animal herds, our wapiti and our whitetail. A warm thank you to the Deerstalkers Association for inviting me. It's also great to be here with my colleague, James Meagher, who I'm sure, like me, is looking forward to the opportunity to connect with you all further later on this evening, if he's here, and throughout the conference. I actually think quite highly of James. He's first term MP, and he's actually making movement. He's doing really, really good. He's an intelligent young lad, and I think he has a bright future in politics. I'm grateful to be a part of these gatherings where I get to engage with so many responsible and knowledgeable firearm owners. I know that firearms, as well as firearm safety, are very important to us all as members and affiliates of the Deerstalkers Association, because I too share this priority. Many of you will know that I have competed on the international stage in target shooting sports, that I have hunted to put food on my family's table, and that I spent decades as a firearms safety instructor. Over the past few years, I've had the honour of advocating on your behalf for straightforward and practical firearm laws that will keep our communities safe. I'm deeply thankful to those who voted to put me in this position, and I do hope at the end of this term I do them proud. Today I'm here in my capacity as the Associate Minister of Justice to share details about this government's firearms reform program. Before I get into the details, I would like to thank all of you who have taken the time to engage with me and with my officials at the Ministry of Justice across the different phases of the reform program, and I know it's been big for those that have made submissions. I appreciate your willingness to support me by providing valuable insights, sharing your experiences and difficulties with the current law, and sharing your visions for what New Zealand's future firearms should look like, firearm laws should look like. I firmly believe that New Zealand needs laws that will keep firearms out of the hands of criminals, while also supporting our hunters, our farmers, our collectors and our sporting competitors to continue Your input and the input of your members will help us to achieve this. Make no mistake, this firearms reform program is ambitious. It has many moving parts and many tight timeframes. To tackle this challenge, I have progressed the work in 4 phases. The first phase, firearm prohibition orders, focused on keeping firearms out of the hands of gangs and other high-risk offenders. The changes to the firearms prohibition orders regime came into effect on March 2nd of this year. This is one of the many actions that this government has taken to smash the gangs, reduce violent crime, and restore law and order. Briefly, we've made 3 key improvements to the FPO regime. We've expanded the qualifying criteria for the courts to make an FPO. We've given police a new search power to monitor compliance with an FPO. And we've established a process which allows for an FPO to be modified or removed. The second phase of my firearms reform program is focused on designing a new approach to regulating shooting clubs and ranges. The changes made to the Act simplify regulatory requirements on shooting clubs and ranges while maintaining the public safety requirements. This provided much needed relief to club and range operators who have struggled to comply with unnecessary extra regulatory burdens. Phase 3 of the program looks to transfer the Firearms Safety Authority away from police into another public service department. The work to achieve this is underway. It is essential that the Firearms Safety Authority is transferred to another department so that we can begin to restore trust and confidence between the regulator and licensed firearm owners. This will be no easy task, but after hearing your concerns, I agree it is a necessary one. I expect that the transfer will be in progress before the end of this parliamentary term. I'd like to reassure you now that your privacy and your right to the security of your private information is at the front of my mind when it comes to reform. I am intent on ensuring your information is kept secure when the transfer of the Firearms Safety Authority occurs. Do it once and do it right is the phrase that echoes in my mind. Phase 4 focuses on the largest task, the rewriting of the Arms Act, to modernise the firearms laws. It provides a unique opportunity to take a systematic and considered approach to our firearms laws in a way that hasn't been done in over 40 years. The work is well underway. In fact, I can now see a light at the end of the tunnel. Public safety, trust and confidence, regulatory best practice and practical regulation are front of mind for me as I progress this work. I heard from many of you as part of the public consultation carried out by the Ministry of Justice earlier this year, and I was pleased that almost 8,500 New Zealanders and organisations took the time to make their voices heard in submissions on the rewrite of the Act. Those submissions made more than 700,000 individual points that have guided the work for the rewrite of the Arms Act. I will, however, take this opportunity to say we're going to need a lot more than 8,500 submissions when the Arms Act bill goes to Select Committee if we want an enduring Arms Act that lasts. Unfortunately, I can't share specific details of this work with you right now as decisions regarding the rewrite are still being considered by Cabinet. What I can tell you is that I expect to make announcements regarding the proposed changes in coming months. I plan to introduce a bill to rewrite the Arms Act to Parliament before the end of this year. Once the bill is referred to Select Committee for its consideration, there will be opportunity for all of you to provide feedback on the specific changes that I am seeking to make. And I encourage all of you and those in your networks to participate in this consultation process. Your voice as stakeholders is critical. I understand that many of you will be absolutely sick of writing submissions, but this will truly be the most important submission of all, the one that counts the most. And once again, I assure you that your voice will be heard and your submissions will be read. In closing, I appreciate that you always give me opportunities to address you and to speak to you, to represent you and my fellow club members, to make what I hope will be meaningful improvements to our firearms laws. It's been a pleasure to have joined you here in the Deep South. I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference. I think some people are getting out for a hunt on the other side of it, and I wish you well. And now's the time for me to take questions, so open to the floor.
We've included the branch and board. Of the 8,500 submissions, have you got the split between for and against?
I can't tell you off the top of my head, but there will be. It will be accessible online in the departmental report. It will tell you how many were for, how many were against, how many did not say. One thing I will point out though is that the anti-firearm lobby group, Gun Control New Zealand, submitted a petition that had 6,000 signatures on it. So one of those 8,500 had 6,000 antis. Now, it was counted as one submission because it was a petition, but if Gun Control New Zealand actually get their act together for the next one, they may make all of those 6,000 people do a submission, and our 8,500 against 6,000, we're out of it. Yeah, the balance is not good.
Thank you.
Nicole, last time we spoke, you hadn't registered your firearms. Have you done that yet?
No. I'm going to quantify this. I need to build my own personal trust and confidence in the system before I enter it, and I will say that if I do have a triggering or activating event, then I will do it. I will register my firearms if I get to that because I'm legally obliged to do so. But my personal feelings and what I do personally shouldn't roll on to you guys. You've asked me a question, I've answered you honestly.
Yep, that's good.
I would agree with that. I registered my firearms just before the new law came in, and it gave you a 5-year window to register your firearms. And the guy said to me, he said, "Oh, why aren't you going to register them now?" And I said, "I don't trust the system." And just after that, they had something went wrong up in Auckland where some names came out, and about a week or so later, it happened down in Wellington too with the new system. So anyone who's got that 5-year window should use it.
What I will clarify, thank you Albie for that, but what I will clarify is that the breaches of data information that have occurred, I think there's been 6 since 2019 and to date, have not been of the new registry system. It's been of old paper-based systems and humans entering the system, but the system itself so far has been secure. Am I right with that, Mike?
Patrick Turner, North Canterbury. Obviously over in WA they're going through a number of firearms laws. How much dialogue is going on between New Zealand Police, Australian Police, and then obviously the governments around that front? Is obviously been leaked by the Australia or Western Australian Police, where they leaked it to the media, and the houses were being, addresses effectively, Google imagery, being shown. So what recourse do we, if such a leak that hasn't happened yet, what recourse do we have moving forward?
It's hard for me to predict. I don't have a crystal ball because every situation will be different. But what I will say to you is that I have been assured that the information of licensed firearm holders is, while it's within the system, is kept separate from the firearms that they have. So it's almost multiple entries that would have to be made into the system to correlate it together. This is why I'm saying I need to, for me personally, I need to see it working in order to trust it. But what I'm hearing is all good. What I'm hearing and what I'm seeing to date since the registry has been introduced has been good. But I'm just cautious.
I'm one of those people from the older generation, there's three of us sitting here, and we wonder why on earth are we going through a fourth time firearms licence? We seem to be spending a huge amount of money and resources, which I'll tackle my local community about, when that money could be used for education and health. And it's tying up a lot of resources and bureaucracy, in my view, for no apparent reason. Now, one of the statistics I've heard, correct me, Nicole, if I'm wrong, but registered and legitimate firearms licence holders equate to 99.6% that have never committed a murder or a crime. So why are we chasing around so much against the criminal fraternity? It is, relicensing has done a lot of things for the criminal fraternity, the likes of a gun safe. When they are looking for them, and they know who maybe collectors are and that, they go straight for it and the whole caboodle. When guns were under a bed or way around covered or something, they were more difficult to access and find. It's been made easier for the criminal element to get at them. So I want some clear answers. The last little bit, rather than tie the whole thing up, but we have spent a lot of money and time on this, and since I'm a fourth time re-licensed firearm owner, why on earth has that occurred? Can we actually trust our politicians, police and legal system when we're going through the whole gambit again? So if you've got some clear answers for me, please.
Yeah.
Could we have
And I think, effectively what you're asking is why are you having to renew every 10 years? Have you done it 4 times? Is that what the question is about?
Well, to me, it's a clipping and a sticky exercise.
Okay. I think I can
You know,
answer your
you're using those resources again, and you go through the whole gambit. When, to me, if there's 99.6% of the people that are legitimate, why are we going through that?
So the reason why it all changed from a lifetime license to a 10-year license was because of our Moana. It was because of David Gray, who had a lifetime license, but nobody actually picked up that this guy has a few issues. Another one that occurred, of course, was Jan Moana in Napier, who had a license that expired, and when police went to go and find out what happened to his firearms, we lost the police officer. The reality is, we are basing firearms licensing on fit and proper status, and people need to be checked and rechecked for their fit and proper status. If you look at what I'm trying to advocate, I don't believe in the registry. I believe it's the person, not the gun. That means we have to put more emphasis on making sure that the person is fit and proper and retains that fit and proper status. You may have been a great man for 40 years or more, by the looks of it. You have been, and you've been a hunter, and you've been out here and you've been doing it. But when we have the Jan Moliners and we have the David Greys out there, what I would call the rotten apples in our golden barrel of golden apples, that 0.4% that you talked about is still in our barrel. We've still got to find them. And if I am to advocate that licenses should be given to fit and proper people, then it means we have to check that they maintain that fit and proper status.
Yeah, Nicole, just interesting, I've got a grandson, he's almost 17 now. He gave up, and he's technically quite good with computers, trying to get his firearm license. It's not easy for a young guy or girl, and these are the people we want coming forward. Why the hell is it being made so difficult for a younger person who often doesn't have a real me or anything, or if he goes to the cops and says, I want a paper copy, oh Christ, you're a pain in the ass. Why are we deliberately or indirectly making it more difficult to, put young guys or girls, often in secondary school, coming forward. I mean, I got my firearms license when I was 16, and it would be nice to think that equally young guys and girls today can do the same.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think we've all come from an era where we only had to fill in one page, and we got our license and we had a quick interview, and we've all done pretty well actually. And I will congratulate Kiwis and licensed firearm owners for that, because I think the old system of having volunteers within your community with the knowledge on firearm safety and then continuing it on by inviting people to come into clubs is what made it such a success. When we moved away from that and we moved into this 40-page document, really it's about being able to ascertain initially whether or not a person would meet initial fit and proper criteria. I understand that it's hard, and I expect that the Firearm Safety Authority will be looking at what's working, what's not working. That's what they should be doing, constantly reviewing what they do and how they go about doing it to make sure that it's effective. But I'm not actually in charge of Firearm Safety Authority. The Minister of Police is, I'm the Associate Minister of Justice, just for writing the firearms law. But what I will say is, again, in the interests of fit and proper, it's about delving into as much information as you can. It's whether or not they have that balance right. And, you know, it'll be trial and error. They had changes. They're figuring their way through those changes. And once we rewrite the Arms Act and move Firearm Safety Authority to another government department, there's going to be more changes for them. So it's like, bear with us while we get there, because what I'm hoping to have at the end of this term is the start of enduring legislation and an enduring scheme that will keep us going for 40 years again once we get it nailed as to how to do it right.
Hi, Nicole, McKee. Acknowledging the burnout that a lot of licensed firearms owners and deerstalkers feel, acknowledging the scale of the fight we have ahead of us and its importance. You are one voice, and you're a great one for us in Parliament, but there are many against you. What can we as deerstalkers in a community of 12,000, the Colfo Squad and all the other pro-firearms groups, what should we be saying to our local MPs to help you as they look towards the next election cycle to put pressure on getting a good law?
Thank you for that question, because you're quite right. I'm fighting an uphill battle. I'm one of 123 elected members of Parliament, and I sit around a cabinet table with 19 others, and I'm very privileged and proud to be able to sit around that table and argue and debate firearms legislation. But it is really hard because there is concern. It's such an emotive subject. There's concern about every single change that I try to make from people who don't have an understanding about the effect of those changes. I win some, I lose some. I lost the registry one as an example. And as I'm starting to work through what the Arms Act rewrite says, it's happening again. I'm winning some and I'm losing some. But in the interest of creating the legislation, we're trying to get that fine balance. What does this mean for you, and how can you help? Go and talk to your national MPs. Go and talk to your New Zealand First MPs. Please though, do not write them emails and do not write them letters, because they will refer them to me as the minister in charge to reply. And my office is kind of very busy at the moment to write the Arms Act. So what you need to do is actually go face to face with your representatives, ask for a meeting when they hold electorate days, and then go and talk to them about what you do. Because if anything, what it does is it allows them to see the hunters in the community and where they come from. Because we are not one group. We come from all sorts of backgrounds, and I think that's really important for my colleagues in Parliament to see. Yes.
Nicole, Marcus before raised the potential for a potential overseas contribution to hunting in New Zealand, maybe a hunting licence for overseas. Is there any potential to link that into an overseas temporary firearms licence?
That's not a question that I would be able to answer off the spot. What I am doing is working on how we can allow overseas competitors and hunters to come into the country and get firearms equivalent licenses easier, recognise their qualifications. I'm sort of focused on that rather than levying them. So,
Yeah.
keep on at James about that one.
Oh, hi Nicole. Hi, I'm Tim from the Bay of Plenty branch. I also sit on the Bay of Plenty Conservation Board, and I was down in Te Kaha a few weeks ago visiting the Raukamara Paimona project, and a big topic that came up was their inability to access basically to access the law for firearms licensing. So my question is, when you're writing the laws as they are at the moment, how do you consider people who are in remote communities getting equal access to the law? You know, if people are having to drive, say, 2 hours each way to get to a police station, perhaps to do an interview, things like that, is there any sort of consideration to give into those remote communities?
When I write the Arms Act and the regulations that will go with it, it will always be accessible on the legislation, New Zealand legislation website. But if, the average layperson trying to get onto legislation and read it and understand it can be quite difficult. So I don't recommend doing that unless you have some sort of legal background and can understand it. But then it comes down to, well, how do people access it? And when we start to make changes, when the Firearms Safety Authority is moved, when legislative changes are coming or are actually implemented, then the Firearms Safety Authority will be the ones that will get the messaging out. They are the ones that have the email addresses of the licensed firearm owners. They are the ones that have the website that most people go to. I do find it a little disappointing that police aren't able to print out the applications and stuff of these police stations that I've been hearing about. And I don't, we've got to have a look at how this is going to move once the FSA moves themselves, because police will no longer be involved. And yet it's the police stations that everyone's going to. My goal is to not completely exclude police. Police play an absolute vital role in not so much the licensing, but our firearms laws. So I want to ensure that police are still a part of the community and a part of the Arms Act and how we operate. I would hope that I'm able to come to some sort of agreement with New Zealand Police so that we can still utilise their services, or sorry, not their services, but their buildings and their offices for, say, people in rural communities being able to still go somewhere to get something if they cannot access FSA. My understanding is that in some police stations, especially some remote ones, there are some firearm safety officers working there. So we are currently having a look at how will the operational work, and this is why the transfer of the Firearm Safety Authority is so essential. It's not just about picking it up, lifting it and dropping it somewhere, it's all the things that go with it. So currently, it's all the police stations that have all the gun safes, so if they confiscate firearms, they go into your local police station. If it moved to the Ministry of Justice, could you see the courts around the country which are going to take in the guns? If it moved to DIA, they don't have officers everywhere to take the guns. So these are some of the logistical things that we need to work through. And I would hope that New Zealand Police would continue to help us to get information out to licence owners, prospective licence owners, those that are renewing, because it's in the interest of public safety that we all work together. So not quite an answer for you, but I'm hoping to just give you a bit of a vision of how I include police, because I think it's important to do so, but remove from them that regulatory and administration role, leaving them with the enforcement, but still able to work closely together.
Dave Fowler from North Canterbury. My father, who was pretty good with his hands, and he built 2 small 22 rifles for indoor rifle range use. And he stamped on numbers on each one of them at least. I've got both of these at the moment. And one of my children, I said, anybody interested in taking one of these? And my youngest daughter said, yeah, she'd like one. As a memory of Dad and what he did. And so I rang up the local Christchurch Arms office and asked, what's the story with putting on an old firearm, which would have to be made inoperative, in my view, the wood stock and the steel work and everything, and the father built a whole lot except the barrel, of course. And they said, oh, we should have to get a firearms license. And I thought, well, what's the point of that? You're never going to use it, it's an artefact on the wall, it can't be used, but you've got to have a firearms license. What a waste of energy by everybody for that situation. So I don't know whether that's cropped up to you or not, but to me, it's a little problem. I'm either going to throw a whole lot to the rubbish dump or give it to the local police station, because I can't give it to my daughter to put on the wall.
What I will say to that is, I think that's actually been in place since before the legislative changes, and I guess my answer is, what a great opportunity to get another person licensed. That one may not be working. I mean, you look at the numbers. When I came into politics, there were 248,000 licensed firearm owners. We've just been told today there's 228,000. We've lost 20,000. What a great opportunity to get a young one licensed.
I could send it up to you, but she's going to go, she's a working woman, a high school teacher, and she'd have to take time out to get a license, and she's never going to use it. So I take your point, it's a promotional answer, but from a logical point of view and energy resources required, not essential.
Well, sir, by getting a license, she'll be given some safety education, and I know that it's a firearm that's not working, but she will understand every part of that firearm once she does do a course, but also she'll know a lot more, I think, and benefit from that knowledge, having done the course and got it, and being attributed a license. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd just like to thank you once again for your time. Thank the Deerstalkers Association, thank the Deerstalkers Association, Cullen, Wynne, the team for having me up to speak to you. I can't wait for next year's conference.
Free beer.
And as I mentioned to you, with the firearm stuff, I'm actually seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, and I'm now starting to get a bit excited about it. If I just may quickly, before I finish up, that you know how this is going to roll, so you know what to expect. I'm on my final cabinet paper, which will take into cabinet with details about policy rewrite of the Arms Act. If I get this through, if it passes, Parliamentary Council Office will then be told to start drafting the bill. Once the bill is drafted, I then go back to Cabinet and hopefully they agree to it. The moment Cabinet agrees to it, which will be on a Monday, by that afternoon we'll be ready to announce that the bill will be introduced into the House, and we'll be able to tell you what's in it, and you'll be able to read it once it's introduced, which will probably be the next sitting day. We're nearly there. Thank you for supporting me. Thank you for having my back. Thank you for giving me the energy when I get pretty low on it. And thank you to all those people that answer the trolls on my social media.